Welcome back to the Three Parallels Podcast with your host, the Dr. Jason Branch, where we rediscover who we once were, we embrace who we actually are, and we make room for the better versions of ourselves. So today, as y'all know, whenever I bring family on, we have us a ball. So I'm bringing in family, and the reality is we have these conversations anyway. I'm just choosing to allow y'all in. And today's guest, ooh, I got somebody for y'all. Listen, grab your Gator Scales journal if you can. If you can't, understood, you might be driving, cooking, doing other things, and that's fine. Take mental notes, okay? You can do that. You always got access. So today's guest is Julie Cosenza. Now, let me tell you about Julie before we jump in. Julie and I met at Alliant International University some time ago, and we were actually given keys to a mentor program that we decide we finna ride this thing the way we want. And it was just this organic connection, and we just saw each other. We saw, felt, understood each other in different ways, different parts of the globe, and we work really well together because we see us in what we do. And what we do, we're passionate about to help other people, and we just found a way to be who we are. So I decided I gotta let Julie in on the entire world and whoever's willing to listen. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today the most illustrious Dr. Julie Cosenza. Welcome to the show, baby.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes,
That's
indeed. It's
a great introduction.
Listen, we ain't playing. We ain't playing. I had to let them know. I had to let them know. So I need you all to be mindful. Y'all gonna get hit in the head with a honey bun throughout the show. I just need you to know. Julie's gonna drop some gems, gonna drop some jewels, gonna hit you in the mouth with a in the most loving way possible, with
Okay.
so much knowledge and lived experience. And this is part of the reason that I was able to bring her on the show, bring them onto the show, because the knowledge base, the expertise related to the lived experience of who they once were, who they are, and who they are becoming. So, with that said, what's your story? What's your journey? What would you like to share with the listeners related to just an introduction of you? I gave a piece of an introduction, but who would you like to say you are to the listeners?
Who would I like to say I am? So I am a person who identifies as white, gender queer, sex queer, um, a person with a disability. I have a learning disability. And I have a good story about that too, because we were talking about another story in one of my first classes in undergrad. So, and I was born and raised in California. Um, and I have a wonderful, beautiful partner and a cat. So that's pretty much my me in a nutshell. When I went to undergraduate school, so I grew up in Lafayette, California, which is very, very affluent and white. And so first I went to Chico State, and I really wanted to study theater at first. So first I did theater arts, and then I went into multicultural and gender studies. So I did 2 degrees, and we were talking about who was I in undergrad. It was a very different person than who I am today.
Mm.
And so one of the things that you and I were talking about the other day was, how did I kind of get to where I am around consciousness, around race, sexuality, gender, class, socioeconomic status, religion, citizenship, all of those wonderful, disability. Like, how did I kind of develop, who I am today and where I'm going to go in the future? So I think starting with some of the paradigm shifts that I had, that I will admit that I, didn't know. And I think one of the things that really helps people move from one phase to the other in their lives and their developmental paths is these paradigm shifts. And paradigm shifts are not comfortable. They're not, like a hot tub and some bubbly champagne. That's not a paradigm shift. That's privilege. That's sitting in your
Ooh,
privilege. Yeah.
ooh. So you've already opened the door. You've
Yeah,
already opened
I
the
know.
door. So let's go to the basement. And
Okay.
for the
Oh,
listeners, for the
okay.
newbies, with listeners, the basement is where our heart lies. That's where the emotions are. That's where the darkness and the secrets and the things that we don't talk about is usually locked in the basement. Julie has already opened the door for us to go down here and have some conversations about their lived experience and upbringing and paradigm shift. So I would love to dive into the parallels, the paradigm from where you were to where you were able to develop into from a class in undergrad. If you could share with us that story, and please feel free to share as much detail as you like, to help people understand shifts and
Mhm.
change, and you being
Yeah.
able to experience a shift and change from that class. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the conversation started with, well, why I enjoy talking to white people about race and what kind of strategies do I use? So I use strategies to kind of help, not help, but support people, white people to see outside of that of their privilege, outside of the white bubble. And I grew up in the white bubble, so I have that space. So you asked like what was something that you would use in these conversations? So when I took my first sociology class, and it was sociology of, I think of, I don't even know, a sociology class. We were talking about people of color, and I had never heard the term people of color before. I think it was I went to high school or I went to college in 1997, is when I started. So just to give you a sense of when we were talking. So in class, I would like trying to be engaged. I said colored people in class,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea. Like,
Yeah.
so then the teacher stopped the class and, said, hey, there's a difference between saying people of color and colored people. And it was
Mm.
such a moment because I didn't even realize I said it.
Yeah.
But she was looking at me and I'm like, I must have said that.
Mm.
So that was a moment of, I feel very uncomfortable right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a place where, I had to really kind of sit back and say, like, I don't know anything. I don't know if you can swear on this, but I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know.
Be you.
I don't know it. I just don't know. Like it was a really humbling moment of, man, I got a lot to learn. Um,
Wow.
and then an interesting story about that class too is that I grew up in special education. And when I went to college, I was like, I'm this new person. I don't have to go to special ed classes anymore, and I'm in college. And so somebody in the class asked for a note taker. And with dyslexia, learning disabilities, that is the accommodation that I usually get as a student. I could get. I didn't do it in college because I was like, I'm in college. I don't have to do any of these accommodations. I got it all on. And so I volunteered to do note taking, and it was
Mm.
just 2 classes.
Yeah.
And they came back and said, we can't read your notes. We're asking for somebody else to be a note taker. Like this
Wow.
makes no sense. You have
Wow.
basically have no business taking notes. That's kind of how I heard it, but like that's really what happened. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, another kind of like, shoot, shoot,
Yeah.
there's a shift. I kind of like,
Wow.
remember your place. So those
Mm.
two things were like a little humbling for me. Um,
Wow.
and that was like
Now,
the first bang right off the
mm,
first class in undergrad was that experience.
wow. So it sounds like you got two huge living or lived experiences related to race relations, and just not knowing, just not aware, not aware at all. Even though you've gone through life as long as you did, as far as you did, even in the state of California, which can be considered a liberal state, you just weren't aware. And fortunately, you had a professor that didn't
Mhm.
mind, helping you become more aware by sharing truth. And then the other side related to a learning disability, or just this was your norm. I can write notes. I can read my own writing. I know my own stuff. But how other people perceive it, it sounds like these were really eye-opening experiences that shifted your perspective about
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because a lot of times, a lot of us, whenever we're challenged with something that goes against our beliefs, rules of engagement, or lived experience, we are defensive to it because somebody
Mhm.
calls us out what we don't know. And we're defensive, and sometimes we retreat or we attack back. And it sounds
Mhm.
like for you, it sounds like you weren't defensive at all, but you were introspective and reconsidered your perspective. That's what it sounds like happened. So if you don't
Mhm.
mind sharing, how did you do that? Like, not take it personal, not get your feelings hurt in it, and go in a different direction, but you actually leaned in of, hey, this is something I don't know. I want to become more aware so I don't hurt anyone, or be disrespectful with the things that I say that I may not know could be offensive to people. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that what you're kind of getting at is white fragility, which I didn't know of at the time.
So real quick, we going, we already here. So if you could talk about white fragility and white privilege, because there's a lot of listeners who aren't aware of these terms, who've never heard of them before until this episode. So if you don't mind
Okay.
sharing some definition behind that too, that would be helpful.
So I'm not, this is just Julie's definition. This isn't like the definition of all definitions. It's not a capital T truth. It's just from my perspective.
I love the disclaimer. I
Yeah.
love it.
I don't want to have to define things. That's a lot of responsibility. I think for me, kind of in the context of basically white privilege is unearned benefits. It's like because of the color of your skin, you're going to have privilege. And it also is a legacy in our country. So our country was founded on stolen land and enslaved people to progress, you know, rather quickly through the Industrial Revolution. Because if you think about it now, like what if somebody gave me land and free labor, of course I would be wealthy. And so historically, only white people could have wealth, you know, vote, have wealth, all that kind of stuff. So there's a long legacy, a systemic legacy of privileging whiteness. And then you see that not only in the US, but colorism also privileges lighter skin. So and those two things are separate.
Mhm.
But that's how I kind of see white privilege is just looking at a white person, there's certain assumptions that a lot of people make. Like you can do the job, like you're a
Mhm.
white person. You're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I fall into those too. I had a employee or a person I was managing who was this white man and he wore a suit and I was like, all right, he's got his job and I'm pretty sure he's doing his job. And then I
Mhm.
realized like, well, I just assumed that he was doing his job when he wasn't. So there's
Wow.
like these moments of like, we all make these assumptions. So that's what
Yeah.
I would say white privilege is unearned benefits based on race.
Yeah.
And then I would say white fragility is a response to like what you were talking about. It's that defensive response. And this isn't to say, I mean, I know white fragility because I've been there. You know, I've definitely had a defensive response at some point, you know, at a lot of points.
Yeah.
So it's the defensive response. It's the like sometimes you have like white women tears, you know, sometimes when you're like they're faced with questions about, you know, like that, I found that to be racist, they'll, you know, there'll be this fragileness.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of, especially for white women, but a lot of people have felt like, you know, now they have to take care of this fragile white person when the
Mhm.
attention is really should be on the racist comment or on
Yeah.
the harm that was done, but those get
Mhm.
marginalized. So the idea of fragility, it's actually Robin DiAngelo wrote the book on it, and I was privileged enough or fortunate enough to take a workshop with her. And so
Wow.
she really looks at feminism and kind of whiteness and how they're actually like male privilege and patriarchy and whiteness and how they're intertwined. But that's basically the gist of like falling apart when called
Mhm.
like not having that response like you're talking about of like, oh, let's be introspective and
Yeah.
I said something wrong. I could have possibly have, you know, offended someone. So now
Yeah.
I will move forward on repair.
Yeah. So just curious, and I want to be mindful of the listeners. It sounds like the right for this is my assumption. The white fragility connects to the Karen mentality. You know, that we are all familiar, or some of us may be familiar with the Karen mentality. White women being addressed of their privilege or acknowledged of what they're doing is hurtful or mean. And it's been this community of white women who have a hard time with people of color being who they are, doing whatever it is that they do. So it sounds like that's the definition of white fragility. And for you, being a white woman, and choosing, because it's choice based, you chose not to go in that direction, but to go in a different direction that's more connected to the human experience. Where did that come from for you to decide? Because you don't have to, you know, having privilege, you don't have to, but you decided, I care more about me knowing more, knowing differently to help, versus what I know is the only thing I need to know. I'm not really worried about anything else. How did you make that decision to choose to be Julie instead of Karen?
Well, So let's unpack that a little bit. So
Let's do it.
The Karen concept isn't necessarily, so white fragility, I just use white women tears as an example. But white fragility can happen to, any white person, male,
Mm,
non-gender, gender binary, like it can happen to anyone.
yeah.
Um, I think that white women have the savior complex. So I think that there is more of that, more white fragility with white women. And I
Mm,
also don't identify as a woman. I identify as sex queer, genderqueer. So non-binary is a better kind of description for my gender. So but I am AFAB, so I was assigned female at birth, and I'm often read as a woman. So I'm in
mm,
this place where I don't really identify as a woman, but I'm read as a woman, and I was socially conditioned as a woman. So,
mm.
um, yeah, so I don't necessarily identify as like a woman, which is very interesting because I did so many years of women's studies,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
women and gender studies, um, uh, that I like now don't identify as a woman.
Mm.
Um, but and then so what was the question? Do
Yeah,
you
like we can just take a ride here because where we're going, you talking about being non-binary, and even with me giving you the title of being a woman, like that's
Mhm.
that's my ignorance as well because I'm still learning about the LGBTQ plus community. So you're teaching me as well as the listeners at the same time because a lot of times we don't know. And what you just shared is an opportunity for us to know, for us to learn that we're not the same. It's not this, traditional
Mhm.
or to go back in time of it's just men, women, black and white. It's way more than that. There's a lot of layers to it. And I really appreciate you giving me space to be me and also offer some knowledge that I didn't know about, and not allowing us to just talk over it like, nah, I ain't no woman, bro. We ain't we listen, I ain't your girl no more. uh, so I
Yeah,
appreciate that because I'm here to learn as well. This is just
yeah.
not me, providing a space for listeners, but I want to learn. I want to be better too. And there's so much that we don't know. And I love having people on with this knowledge base, especially their own lived experience,
Mhm.
to share this truth to help people see people differently. So I appreciate you for that. And you know, because of our relationship, I know that I'm going to continue to learn more because you and I specifically, can have conversations that we may not be able to have publicly. And this podcast also serves as that place that we can have conversations that we're just not able to have publicly. Like there's a lot of people that never heard about white fragility until today. There's people that never heard about white privilege until today because these are conversations that we may not have at the dinner table.
Mhm.
Some people have never had in their entire lives, and they happen to be white, and they happen to be non-binary, and they happen to be this or that. So that's why these conversations are so important. And I appreciate you so much for being exactly who you are and letting us know who the hell you are and who you are not. Talk that shit, Julie. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, I think that living on the margins a little bit really helped with empathy. And I think the question is kind of what made me want to change it's like I want to change myself, I want to change the world. And I think that, I struggled and I see other people, struggling even worse than I struggled,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I have empathy for that. And I think that I've looked at enough of history. I think history is really important of our country and of other countries as well, and kind of looking at colonialism and the ideological legacies of colonialism. So even though we don't have maybe a specific colonial structure in our country now, we have had one, and there's lots of ideas and legacies that are passed down. So kind of being able to see that and having my own experience has really helped me to kind of think like we've got to make change, and
Yeah.
it can't just be in the classroom, it can't just be on a podcast or walking down the street, like it's everywhere,
Wow.
especially
Wow.
with the new regime we have in power. We definitely need to be more active all the time
Yeah. Yeah.
in
So, so
equity
this is
and
it's so
justice.
powerful. Everything you're saying is so powerful, and you don't have to, and you chose this for the greater good. Because I'm hearing the humanism, I'm hearing the care, the heart of for people, and I want to switch gears a moment because this was really heavy on race, but now let's move to this other level of gender where you were
Mhm.
talking about, you were studying women's studies and feminism and gender studies, and to transition from that personally and professionally, if you could share with us a story, because there's a lot of listeners who may have been where you once were or in a space where they don't know. And it's like, society says I need to be this way, but I feel something different. So if you
Mhm.
could share, whatever you're willing to related to that transition of this is how you used to live life and then you saw things differently and you decided I want to live life on my own terms. How did you make that transition?
Well, lots of factors. I think that I was fortunate to, take a lot of women's studies classes. My master's is in women and gender studies, and then I have a certificate in the doctorate level. So I got exposed to a lot of gender analysis. So gender is a lens that you can apply to anything. So you, whenever doing an analysis of a TV show, you could do a race analysis, you could do a gender analysis, you could do a disability analysis. Like you can look through a lens, and hopefully you're doing all of them at the same time. But you can look through a lens and, make an analysis. So I was trained to look through the world through a gender lens. And I think that also having a partner who has been very fluid too in their gender, they also use they, them pronouns, um, was very helpful. And I think that, in some ways, I will, I, I question, like, who is the, like, the authentic self? Like, am I really living an authentic, is there one? I challenge and question that all the time. I think it's the queer theory in me. But was I, not happy like living as a woman, and like am I really not living as a woman now? Like everybody recognized me as a woman. Like my parents will always say favorite little girl, she, her. They'll never use they, them pronouns.
Wow.
And I'm okay with that. Like that's fine. They
Yeah. Yeah.
can, yeah, like that's way too hard for them. And if they want to
Mm.
like hang on to the favoriteest little girl in the whole world, then
Mm-hmm.
that's okay with me. I'm okay with
Mm.
that kind of part of me. Um,
Yeah.
but like in my friends, in work, people who know me, I use they, them pronouns, and I use positive reinforcement, which I think you'll really appreciate to the best of my ability. So
Mm-hmm.
I am flawed in so many ways, but if like somebody says, like, for example, you use she and then they in this podcast. So I would say, like, thank you. I can see you're trying. We're all gonna make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I
Mm-hmm.
would like send a little message and say, like, hey, thanks for being conscious of pronouns. So
Yeah.
that's like a way of using that positive reinforcement, because a lot of folks really like they, will jump on people in the moment. Not to say that I haven't done that in very frustrating times. But but I try. So that's why I say I try to practice positive reinforcement. And I think that that not only helps me be more positive, but I think it helps other people who use they, them pronouns have a easier route in this world,
I love it. I
easier
love it.
path. But yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but
You
I don't
did.
really have an authentic self. Like
You
I just like I didn't wake up one day, but I just felt like I'm not really identifying with women anymore. I don't like,
yeah.
because when we think of identifying, right, you read a book. Like
Yeah.
let's pretend like we're reading a nonfiction,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, there's a character that doesn't that is a, let's say I'm reading about this woman character, and
Mm-hmm.
like I could identify with them, in a certain way. So like I could see myself with this as this woman character, or I've had similar experiences, or it's like, oh, I really love this character, I so identify with them. But I would read the book and be like, I don't really identify with it, especially if it's a heterosexual woman.
Yeah.
I do not identify with any of that. I am not caught up in this rat race. I don't want to be pregnant. Like none of the things that I worry about, a heterosexual women worry about. And like pantyhose, like so if I'm reading a book about a heterosexual woman, I don't see myself there. Even with a
Mm.
woman, I don't
Yeah.
really see myself as a woman. So it's a great way to kind of think. So then I think that the more I read and the more I, started to look at the world through a gender lens, I just didn't see myself like as a woman, analyzed as a woman.
Yeah.
And I like, I prefer gay man. Gay male energy is probably my favorite. I say
Okay.
that kind of tongue in cheek,
Okay.
but
This is
show
way cool.
tunes made me gay.
Okay.
Just put it that way.
I'm here for all of it. And I appreciate your perspective and that positive reinforcement because as a student of life myself, I'm still learning too. And you set a precedent where you give space for people to learn and grow. You know,
Mhm.
now you may have done things a little different in the past, but where you are now, it gives people a chance to connect. So for me, with everything that you're sharing, it's allowing me to be even more mindful and intentional about what I do and what I say because I'm learning in real time and you're providing me space to do that. And to me, that's so powerful because oftentimes we don't provide that space. And part of the reason we don't provide that space is because we feel some kind of way. I feel disrespected or, you said my name wrong or you said my pronouns wrong. Not recognizing that this person may not know, they may not have done it, they may not do it because I'm still learning it, even with students that I'm working with. So it's like you have this perspective that's just about connection. It's connectivity. Let's bring you in. Come here. Come on in. Let's have a conversation. And to me, that is so powerful because that's how change can occur. Versus, let me bust you upside the head with this truth real quick. So it's just changing, doing it in a
Well,
different way. Jump in. Jump in.
yeah, it's really fascinating. I think it takes both. Like if I didn't have one of the other stories that I shared with you as an undergrad is I had a African American Black woman who was a sociology teacher, another sociology teacher. I wrote this horrific paper that said, women have it like worse off than Black people because there's more like women support systems. Like it was measuring like how many like things are for women and how many things are like are for people of color or BIPOC folk community. So like because there's more resources for women, I wrote this paper that said that women have it like worse off, that we need to like focus more on women, which is totally what I do not believe now, by the way, like
Mm,
complete opposite. But my teacher wrote on that paper, this is an elitist argument, and these are all the things that are wrong. And that was like, whoa, like she hit me over the head, but I needed to be hit over the head. So it's like
wow.
these paradigm shifts, it's
Uh-huh.
not in the hot tub with bubbles, with champagne. This is like outside, like bam, bam, bam,
Yeah.
with your head.
Wow.
And those are painful, but they're
Mm,
so important. And I
yeah.
feel like I had that space in my undergrad to kind of
Mm,
ask these questions and be gently hit over the head, and be corrected in front of the class. And like I
yeah.
had these moments where you were kind of talking about, it was like, people held a space for me,
Yeah.
even if I deserved it or not, they did. They held the
Mm,
space for me to grow. So I
yeah.
think that I want to do the same thing, but if necessary, I will do a paradigm shift. I
Wow.
will get out the
I love it. That's
yeah.
that's you are defining what it means to get hit in the head with a honey bun. That's what you're defining right now.
Mhm, mhm.
So I want to go back to something because we already in the basement. We ain't left the basement yet. We are deep.
Okay.
And I want to go a little bit deeper. Back to a comment that you mentioned about your parents. Like they still have a hard time and you feel as though they will never
Mm-mm.
acknowledge your new identity or different identity. So I'm assuming for you to be okay with it, as in they don't never have to call me who I actually am
Yeah,
or
yeah,
identify, you're okay with it. And to me, that sounds like someone who's very self aware, very authentic, and has done some work. It sounds like you've done a lot of work on you. I'm curious to learn more about this work because it sounds like you've been in therapy, but I don't know. So, just curious, like, where did you get this confidence and authenticity within yourself of I identify the way I choose, whether you choose to or not, I'm still okay, even if it's my parents.
yeah. I think, you know, we really just have to accept people where they are. And
Mm,
what's more important for me? So my mom's had like major surgeries all over her body. She had a stroke, which impacts her memory. And so for my mom, I think when so Danny and I, my partner and I, we use they, them pronouns in front of my parents. My brother uses them, my, sister-in-law, my cousins. It's pretty much everybody except for my parents and maybe my aunt and uncle. So it's not like I don't live, it's like I'm out to them. Like, but my mom, when we had like our first conversation around pronouns, she went the opposite direction. She's like, I sent me pictures of myself in dresses as a kid. She really like went heavy on this favoriteest little girl in the whole world. Like you'll always be like, she just went to the opposite direction of like wanting so bad. And there's so many changes in her life. It's like, is that like and she's 75 now, I think. So so it's like what do I want to get at? Is it more important for her to try to use they them and like fumble around? I mean, she can barely remember my name,
Mm.
so it's like if she wants to hold on to that, I think that that's beautiful and that's how she loves me, and that's okay. And I've made peace with that. And my dad's not my dad and I are both super dyslexic, so there's just like he's never gonna be able to do that, So there's a part of like,
So you're
you
saying the
know,
dyslexia prevents him from being able?
I think it's just like an unrealistic expectation. Why put myself up for that? Like, why
Wow.
like set myself up for something that's like, yeah, I just want to enjoy the time we have together.
That is so powerful. That is so mature. Like you are on a whole nother level. And I'm so thankful to share you with everyone because for anyone listening, I need you to hear what was just shared. Like
Well,
we do
and
things that our parents are not okay with or have a problem with or can't change or shift. Like that's their problem. It's not ours. And you said
mm-mm.
it so eloquently.
Yeah. And I speak for myself. There's a lot of trans people. There's a lot of people who there's more at stake for their existence
Mm,
than me. So I want to point out like I'm okay. It's not but I mean for people who are trans, like actually, transgender, I think that there's a lot more at stake with family. And so for me, it's like, yeah, they, them pronouns, like I can live with that. I can live
I
with
love
that.
it. I love it. I love
And
it.
it's been really beautiful to see my cousins and my
Mhm.
brother. My brother's on board now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they struggle, but they're pretty good at it. So
Yeah.
there's some beautiful aspects, and it's really nice. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I love seeing you light up talking about it. Like you just lit up. I just feel that just being proud. Like, man, they did it. They see me, they accept me, they're acknowledging me. And
Hmm.
that's a beautiful thing. And I see it and I feel that energy. So I really appreciate you sharing it. I appreciate you allowing us in the basement. So let's go back upstairs to the living room. So the living room is
Okay.
where we live. This is where we are in our most authentic space. So I want to ask a
Okay.
few structured questions related to the living room. So out of all these years of life, because you just celebrated birthday, happy birthday. Woo, woo,
Yay.
woo, woo.
Thank you. It
Out of
was
all
yesterday.
the, yes, yes, yesterday's birthday. So out of all these years of life, I'm curious to know, what would you say you've learned about yourself in all these years?
I would say the more you know, the more there's so much you don't know.
Ooh,
So
a
just,
bar.
you
You
know,
dropping bars.
I mean, I would just say, my goodness, like I've learned a lot, but there is so much I don't know.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
And
Oh
it's
man.
it's so good to keep in mind that even when I think I know something, like I know it, um, I probably don't really know. Because time will change,
Yes.
more information will be discovered. And so I'm in a space where I'm open to kind of thinking differently, like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else.
I love it. All
Yeah.
right. Same question. Because what you're talking about, this has been coming up often. What you're sharing, even when you are certain, you just know for sure, then life has a way of showing us different. And what I consider that a great friend of mine who's actually will be on the podcast a little later, um, curiosity over certainty, not holding on to what I truly believe that this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it always is. He's like, no, that's a closed fist. But curiosity allows you to open your hand to receive new.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what you're sharing. You're so wise. Oh, I just love it. I just love it. Same question. Instead of related to you, What have you learned about people in all these years?
People.
Yes, indeed.
So I have always been kind of the rose colored glasses, like people are going to be truthful, they're going to be honest. And I think that because I had such an honest, close family, that, my dad's like, never tell a lie. And we're like, oh, yeah, yeah, never tell a lie. And so I started discovering that people tell lies. People have a
Mm,
dark side. People have a shadow, like kind of um, and that people are not necessarily always going to do the right thing or be as careful with what I've said, like with a conversation, they can like mix it and and so
mm,
so I think that for other people, I'm a little less trusting, I think,
mm,
than I was. And that is actually a good lesson. I
mm.
think,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that that's probably like I was a little naive. And
Yeah.
I think that people have kind of showed me, don't trust, like, don't trust exactly what they say all the time.
Mm. Powerful. Powerful. What would you say is your proudest moment or proudest accomplishment?
It used to be being the most outstanding female athlete in junior high. I got the John DRC award. That was always my go-to. But I think my most prouder moment, maybe I'll just have to stick with that one. I can't think of a recent one.
Okay, that works. Whatever you say goes. That works. So what's a word, phrase, memory, or moment that has stuck with you personally or professionally?
Personally or professional word, phrase, moment. Well, the more, I learn, the more I don't know. That's my big one. Um,
That's quotable. That is quotable right
yeah,
there.
that's for sure though.
Mm,
I for professionally, it's kind of the never email angry. Always sit and be very careful about what you write in your emails. I think personally is like I was kind of talking about with my dad, like just don't tell a lie, like live ethically, live with integrity. And sometimes I think like I should call in sick today when I'm not sick, and then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just take a personal day. So it's like little things like this. I think living honestly
mm,
would probably be, don't tell a lie,
okay. All
words to
right.
go by.
Okay. I love it. I love it. So three parallels. That's the name of the show. So I want to ask your three parallels. How
Mhm.
would you describe who you were, who you are, who you're becoming?
That's pretty easy. I was pretty naive, didn't know a whole lot,
Mhm,
didn't have, I don't know if it was street smarts, but just didn't have a lot of like like a strong sense of the world. And then just thinking back to my undergraduate years, and then who I am now is a little bit more, street smart, a little less trusting, but a little bit more forgiving maybe than
mhm,
I was. And then where am I going? I hope that I'm going to a place where maybe I have a little bit more confidence in my judgment of people and my judgment of myself. Um, to really kind of hit my stride because I'm in those years, where I'm supposed to be, well, not supposed to be, I know I shouldn't say that, but I'm in the years where I can be like,
mm,
you know, best career, that's not career as in money wise, but like fits with who I am and value aligned and um, a really great career. And I'm going to tie the knot
yes.
maybe in January, actually, because we're going to go to the courthouse sooner rather than later due to the Supreme Court and
Yes, yes.
the administration. So we're going to try to do that before November 20th or
Yeah.
January 20th, I mean. I think in my future, I will have a wonderful, life partner, and I'm looking forward to sharing my life with them in an honest and real, real way.
Love it. I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the both of you. Job well done. Also, I have to bring this up because for a lot of the listeners, these moments are really important. They're small, and I consider them breadcrumbs because they're so small, but they're so big because of what they can develop into. And you shared something earlier about, career and what you should do, and then you corrected yourself, or you
Mhm.
shifted perspective of, it's not should, it's what I can do, what I could do. And that small change in your wordplay changed the whole ripple effect of whatever's about to happen. It's going to happen now because it's not a rule, it's not a law. It's
Mhm.
what you're attracting based off of who you're becoming, and it's going to happen. And guess what? I get to watch it. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait until it happens, because it's going to happen because you said it. And for the listeners, these are moments that you have to, I would challenge you to pay attention to, because it's small, but it's big. There is so much power in our words. And if we're not careful, if we're not mindful, we can speak on or speak about the things that we don't want, instead of speaking about the things that we actually want, that we get to attract. So
Mhm.
can, could versus should changes everything. And I really appreciate you saying that. So I had to
But
point it out.
it's funny because I learned that from you. Yeah, like one our
Wow.
conversation, you're
Wow.
like, take should out of that
Yes,
and
indeed.
and put
Quit
could,
shitting on
or
yourself. Quit
yeah,
shitting on
I'm not
yourself out
shitting
here.
on
So any of
myself. Yeah. No, you taught me that.
wow, Julie, man, listen. I can't handle all this. I can't handle all of this. Thank you for sharing that. It's small, but it's so big.
It
And
is.
I saw it. I just saw it happen. I didn't know I was responsible for that. I didn't. I had nothing to do with that.
You did. You
I
did.
love it. I love it. And thank you. Again, listeners, this is happening in real time. Okay. This is organic as it comes. You can put a Chiquita banana or Dole sticker on our forehead, because we are organic. All right. Last next
I love
question.
it.
So for the listeners, because you shared a lot, we was in the basement, so you shared a lot about yourself.
Okay.
I'm curious. We're curious to learn more. What's an interesting fact about you, or something that people wouldn't believe about you?
I was trained as a mime, and I love mime. It's my favorite art form. I'm not as good as it as I used to be because I haven't practiced a whole lot, but I did theater and I did physical theater. So I did dance, mime, choreography, and I worked in a cabaret when I lived in Carbondale when I was doing my doctorate. And I got to create all these fun mime shows. And I think as a person who is dyslexic, I think a lot of like the traditional ways of communication, like words and stuff, and reading and writing and words, they've all kind of failed me in some ways. But I've really found a true kind of self-expression in physical theater. So that's kind of a little known fact that's unknown.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that. Like, man, I just want to, paint my face and get some gloves and get to work. Like, what am I missing around? Get me out of this box. You know what I mean? We have so much fun. Listen,
Hilarious.
listen, we do this anyway, whether y'all listening or not. This is what me and Julie do anyway. So,
Yeah.
last thing on this show, we offer life work. Life work is a little bit different than homework. Homework, you take it home, you do it, you turn it in, you never remember it again. Life work, you take it home, you do it, your life can possibly change. And a lot of things, majority of the things that you shared on the show can be life changing if you're willing to take in the information, the breadcrumbs. You dropped a lot of breadcrumbs. You dropped a lot of loaves of bread. It wasn't even crumbs. It was just straight up loaves. So if you can offer a keepsake to the listeners, some life work, some things, something that they could do, or things that you want to share to help people shift or change or reconsider, what would that be? What comes to mind for you?
I would say that time really helps. So what feels very intense in the moment, my partner would ask me to do this every once in a while. They'll ask, will this matter in 5 minutes? Will this matter in 5 hours? Will this matter in 5 days? Will this matter in 5 weeks? And will this matter in 5 months? And so it's
Mm.
a really great way to say, this might feel like really intense right now, but time will provide more answers. Time will, heal, kind of time will dissipate the kind of intensity of the moment. So I think
Mm.
after making a lot of mistakes and after like living all these things and like, hey, I survived that. And like, oh man, that was horrible, but I survived that. So just thinking like, like the more you make mistakes, the more you have intense situations, the better you are at handling them and just kind of trust in time.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I could say, I think.
Powerful. Powerful. Yes. Yes. Because it's you. It's yours. Also, I appreciate you sharing all that. It's powerful. Also on this show, when we do shout outs, because you shouted out Danny a couple times, I like to bring the person that you shout out on the show. So if you would like to invite Danny in, they are more than welcome to be here to share their story, their lived experience, whatever they want to share. That 5 minutes, 5 seconds, 5 moments already. I'm already interested. So if Danny is interested, they
Okay.
are welcome to join the show. And for the listeners, for people that want to connect with you for whatever reason, give you your flowers, get your suggestions, take your mime course, whatever it is that they want to do. How can people get in contact with you?
Well, I have a Gmail account. That's probably the best way. I'm also on LinkedIn. But JS Cosenza, Cosenza at gmail.com is my email account. If you want to email me, that's probably a good way. I don't check it as much as I should.
As you should, or you could.
Oh, as I could.
There it is.
As I maybe could
Yes.
check it
Yes.
a little more.
So
Good call.
if any of you reach out, like put something in the subject line to make yourself stand out. Could be something we talked about on the show, but something to catch Julie's attention. If you catch the attention, you might get a response. If you don't, you might get lost in the shuffle. So there is that. Any final thoughts? Any final things you want to share? You want to say for the listeners?
I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for doing this. This is a great podcast, and I really appreciate your time. And I will definitely ask Danny if they're interested. I think they would really enjoy this conversation as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We got another one. We got another one. And I would love to meet Danny anyway. Like who's the lucky person to get connected to you? And then y'all finna get married. Like what? Like, yeah, let's go. Let's go, Danny.
Okay.
So this is a big shout out to Danny. For all of you listening to this episode, this has been another phenomenal episode of the Three Parallels podcast with your host, the Dr. Jason Branch, where we discover who we were, we embrace who we are, we make room for who we're trying to become. If this episode has been impactful for you in any way, shape, form, or fashion, give it away. Share it. Don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Don't keep these breadcrumbs or honey buns. Give it away. Find ways to take care of you by doing things new, different, and uncomfortable, and challenging yourself to look at yourself in a new and different way. Julie shared so much information about change, about transition, about acceptance, about people, places, and things that allowed them to be exactly who they are at this time, at the best in the top of their level and going further. So if this has been a blessing, bless somebody else by giving it away. Much love. Have a great day, good morning, good evening, good weekend, good whatever. Good life. Peace.